Hi, I'm Teddy and I'm happy to show you a little bit of my work process when I create shackles for my customers. As of recently, I've started using flat bars to bend into shape and to make shackles out of that. My girlfriend is quite fascinated by how she perceives it as masculine to manhandle the metal, which is a benefit I can always take. This is one of my favorite machines, my manual bandsaw. I'm making a lot of sharp cuts as I'm trying to speed up the video so that it doesn't become too boring to watch. My work process for a few years has been to use primarily pipes. I cut those on my bigger bandsaw, which has been an absolute blessing for my workshop. I like to have some fun, adding a little bit of color to my video, as I think that a little bit of eye candy always helps to make it a little bit more fun, while watching details that even I rarely see, as I don't really look at the material from that close or from those angles. Whenever I'm using pipes, I need to clean up the cutouts, to smooth the sides, the edges, and to clean up the surface. This particular piece is already sandblasted. It has a few spots of rust which are easy to remove, and I think it's quite satisfying to see how the metal transforms its look. I'm trying to give you a clue about what processes go into making those shackles and the final result without the grueling, repetitive work that goes into each small detail. I was a little bit worried about the lens of my camera with all the sparks flying towards it, so I tried to be a bit more gentle and have fewer sparks flying, and thankfully it was fine. This is a sped up process of making the hinges for the shackles. I have to prepare the rods that go inside the hinges, and afterwards I cut out the pipe pieces which come together to form the final piece of the hinge. Those pipes are almost the perfect size inside, but they still need to be widened a little bit so that they can move freely. Sometimes a little bit of a love tap with the hammer helps. It needs to know its place. Usually I work on a lot of orders at the same time, so I need to make lots of hinges. So here I weld the ends of the hinges so that all the elements stay together. Those will be cleaned up afterwards. I love those macro shots. I find them fascinating to see how the steel cools down. And I am quite fond of my drill, which has been an absolute beast, which one time almost broke my wrist, but I was silly and I didn't hold it properly. Since I've been making thousands of those shackles, it helps to have something that allows me some repetitiveness of the distance I place my hinges at. On many shots you can see me shake quite a lot because I'm unused to having a camera so close to me that I need to be careful not to bump into it. So I'm assuming some awkward positions, and usually it goes a lot easier and faster and smoother. I know that it doesn't look very pretty when it's just welded, but trust me, it will become quite shiny and smooth. Another tack weld to keep the whole shackle in the shape that I want, to maintain the distance between the hinge and the shackle pieces, so that I can comfortably weld them without them moving around. It helps to hover a little bit over the weld when I finish welding, so that the additional flow of argon gas protects the steel, as it needs a little bit of protection until it really cools down. I was experimenting with the settings of my camera to allow it to automatically change the exposure. I think it was a cool shot, allowing us to see how gradually the steel cools down and how its red-hot glow fades away. Usually I like to stack the pieces of each order on top of one another so I could keep track which shackle is for which customer. I make the attachment loops for the shackles from chains, and I think it's quite a cool shot to see the chain links being cut from so close. These are the pieces that I use for the locking of the shackles. I've had them cut in advance by a laser, so I can save myself a lot of time from having to make them by hand. Another sped up clip of the welding process. Whenever I'm making shackles that require a screw locking, I need to make caps that protect the screws from falling out. So I make those from small pipes, and for that I use my compact lathe. I find it extremely convenient that I could dial in exactly how deep I go with the drill bit, so I don't drill fully through and actually leave a little bit of an edge that keeps the screw inside. This is an example of one of the shackles with a screw locking. I quite enjoy welding these caps in a way that after I'm finished with sanding them, you can't really see where they've been welded, so that they can look a bit more monolithic and pleasant for the eyes. After I'm done building the shackles, I need to sand down the welds so that I can make them look nice. I've cut out a lot of the work that goes into the sanding. Here you can see the beginning and the end of the sanding process. I've cut out the middle, so you don't have to wait for half a minute for the sanding to be done on each weld. Sometimes it's fun to see some sparks and video editing magic. This is the final step, the wire brushing, which removes all the coloration of the steel that has oxidized from the heat. It's always satisfying to see how uniform the steel looks. I do like to keep a little bit of a rough looking texture of the metal. I think it looks a bit more serious, a bit more medieval-ish. Another satisfying shot of how everything comes into place. And here's one of those pieces. An extra large, heavy collar with 4 attachment loops and screw locking. Thank you for watching, and consider checking out my store where you could see a lot more of the kinky toys that I make.